Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2020. We're here for the purpose of a special meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I would ask Clerk Tamer to call the roll.
Kennedy?
Here.
Conquest?
Here.
Brennan?
Here.
Mulliner?
Here.
Deuter?
Here.
Sabatino?
Here.
Leader? Absent. Dunn?
Here.
Bram?
Here.
Palumsky?
Here.
York? Absent. Toledo?
Here.
Park?
Here.
Levin?
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. We are in session. On to agenda item 2, receipt of written communications from the public. Any written communications? If so, if you're in the audience, please raise your hand, identify yourself. Seeing none, we'll go on to public forum. At this time, is there anybody in the audience? Well, actually, Clerk Tamer, do we have anybody signed up?
No, Mayor.
Nobody signed up for public forum. Is there anybody in the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign in on our sign-in sheet that wishes to address council at this time? If so, please raise your hand and identify yourself. Tom, are you scratching your neck, or do you want to talk? Scratching the neck. Anyone else? Seeing none, that closes public forum. Agenda item 4. I'm going to set this up a little bit before I ask for a motion and allow for a discussion. Couple things as it relates to this. I mentioned it earlier that I had a meeting, being sensitive to the Open Meetings Act. I could have a meeting with up to 3 aldermen to discuss issues. I took the opportunity to do so and invited 3 of our chairmen. Alderman Toledo was unavailable, but the other 3 chairmen were available. And I had a meeting. We had a meeting on Sunday. As I said, about 5.5 hours. I think when we looked up, we couldn't believe what time it was. And it was productive and constant the whole time. At the time, the biggest thing that we were facing, 2 things. One, according to our code, we have the authority to call a special meeting. Any 3 aldermen or the mayor can call a special meeting. That's one. So we took the time to craft, we thought, belt and suspenders. The mayor and 3 aldermen would request a special meeting. 2, if we consider it an emergency, we can actually call an emergency meeting within the 48-hour time frame that the Open Meetings Act requires. All of us agreed in that room that it was an emergency, but we tried to get it out there as quickly as possible, so we posted, I think, before 5 o'clock on a Sunday, and then we did press releases and made sure everyone was aware of it. So that gave us the authority to have this meeting. At the time, we were faced with a couple of things. We're still faced with some of them, not all of them. But the Open Meetings Act in the state of Illinois requires that a couple of things. First of all, there's certain limitations of people who are, if they want to attend remotely. So, for example, if you're on vacation, you can't, technically, you're not supposed to be able to attend a meeting electronically. Second, if you do attend a meeting electronically, you can't be considered as part of a quorum. You can still vote and you can still comment, but you can't be considered part of a quorum. And one of the things that we discussed on Sunday is that there was a very real possibility that we have a meeting 3 weeks from now where it's possible that the city council would not be able to field a quorum and would not be able to operate. So that was part of the reason why we called this. We had the city attorneys actually proactively, they actually drafted an ordinance establishing what I will call temporary executive power, really for true emergencies. I know that they have been working on this with other municipalities. So that's what we were considering at the time. I can tell you this, that not only were we discussing that, I was in contact with legislators and Chairman Cronin because we were all faced with the same issue as it relates to the Open Meetings Act. In fact, I had just gotten the phone with Chairman Cronin around 1:30 today and was working with Jim Grabowski. We were drafting, Chairman Cronin requested that we draft a note to him expressing our challenge with the Open Meetings Act, and he was going to get it to the governor. I know we didn't even finish drafting it before the governor's executive order showed up around 3:30 today. So that's how we got to where we are. There are certain provisions, and we have posted this, the governor's executive order on our website. It was issued today from the governor. Section 6 directly applies to the Open Meetings Act. It allows for suspension of certain restrictions, so it allows for electronic attendance, and it also allows for those electronic attendees to be counted in quorums. So some of that is solved. And that was as recent, I mean, I was on the phone with the attorneys and the city manager around 5 o'clock today, 4:30, 5 o'clock, just to understand the impact of it. I don't think it's all finalized. As city attorney mentioned to me on that phone call, there are literally dozens of questions about how this three-page executive order can affect us and how we legally navigate it. So it's not perfect, but it does give us some direction. However, there is still a possibility. So I had talked, and then I'll turn this over to council members. I talked to the city manager and 2 attorneys about the need for executive authority or executive power, limited executive power pursuant to the section of the Elmhurst Municipal Code and how it relates to our emergencies. The attorneys recommended that we move forward with this. Just because we're facing such a changing landscape. We don't know what directives we're going to get from the federal government. We don't know what directions we're going to get from the state government, and we don't know how quickly we're going to need to respond. Best case scenario, we do have the authority to call emergency meetings. If we really needed to, we can call an emergency meeting an hour from now. And then based on some of the leeway that's given in this executive order, we could attempt to get a minimum or a quorum on the phone and try to make a decision, depending on what gets thrown at us. We don't know, things are changing so quickly. But that's really where we are. I'm glad that we called this executive session. I think that I'm glad that we called this special emergency meeting. I think the governor's executive order clarifies some of it, but I'm not sure it eliminates the need. And with that, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve ordinance. Oh no, let me do this, and then we can vote. We can talk about it. Agenda item 4.1 is an ordinance. I'm going to ask Clerk Tamer to read the ordinance.
An ordinance establishing temporary executive power pursuant to Section 3.16 of Elmhurst Municipal Code and 65 ILCS 5/11-1-6.
Clerk Tamer, I have you missing a word in there, and I'm going to ask you to read it again because I don't want to miss anything. Could you please read the ordinance? Read it, start with the number, and then read.
Okay. 0-15-2020. An ordinance establishing temporary executive power pursuant to Section 3.16 of Elmhurst Municipal Code and 65 ILCS 5/11-1-6.
Don, my printout says pursuant to. Does that matter?
I don't know if it's on
Do I know?
agenda,
Yeah.
but it's just pursuant is the word, pursuant to 65 ILCS 5/11-1.
Yeah, I didn't have all that.
Are we covered?
Yes.
I will ask for a motion to approve the ordinance as read by the clerk and clarified by the attorney. Motion by Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Palomsky. Discussion. Alderman Bram.
Just more of a clarification than anything. My understanding of this is that it is to grant power in case the full city council or a special meeting cannot be had, pursuant to any directives of the coronavirus. Is that an accurate statement?
I don't know if we defined it as far as the coronavirus. It's defined as emergencies. If we have an emergency, I can tell you certainly not the intent to use it in any other manner.
And then the only other question would be procedural, and is that, would there be steps, and if there are, what would be the steps to, I guess, revoke the temporary executive power?
So I think it goes until the next city council meeting. The city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, goes to the next city council meeting, depending, and now that we can have one, hopefully we can get people on the phone. It goes to the next city council meeting, at which time the city council can either re-ratify or cancel. That good summary, city attorney? Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing I will add, Alderman Bram, as it relates to this, it really is only for emergencies. This actually isn't in place yet. I would have to, as defined within this ordinance, if we are faced an emergency, first of all, I have to meet the criteria within here, then I would technically have to declare one. Just two things in that sense. One is, certainly this means that I'm not going to be approving roofing contracts and sidewalks and what have you. That's got nothing to do with this. The other thing is, this is only in the instance if time is of the essence. Let's just say governor or somebody issues an ordinance and says, or issues an executive order, and it's cities have till 12 noon to do X, Y, Z to apply for, let's just say, aid or what have you. It certainly doesn't preclude me either from contacting aldermen personally and getting input. So I have no intent, first of all, I have no intent of doing this unless there is an emergency presented. But second, it doesn't preclude me from talking to folks. It's just if we get in a pinch. That's really it. Anyone else? Alderman Levin.
Just for clarification, the way I read Section 1 is that these are the standards for which an emergency could be declared. One is it's got to be COVID-19 related, and two is it's got to be, as you say,
Immediate
action. So
one is a clarification of Alderman Bram's other question, and two is, yes, immediate action.
yeah, and so I do support this because I think it's important that we have the ability to act when there are potentially unknown circumstances facing us in these unique times. I also have great confidence in the mayor to do the right thing, and I think this is a good ordinance to have in place, and I hope we don't need it.
Okay. Alderman Brennan.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mayor, if you went out sick, and would this ordinance cover the mayor pro tem?
Oh, if I get sick, we actually have I don't want to call it a pecking order. I'm using the wrong term, but we have in our code it states if the mayor's incapacitated, who takes over, and it falls to the committee chairs. And I believe I know for a fact that Alderman Toledo finance is first. I know that Alderman Honquist is last because I used to be DP&Z chair, and they always chapped me that I would be last in line. Is it Public Works? Public Works, Public Affairs, and then DP&Z. That's the priority order. So I appreciate you looking out for the rest of the council if something happens to me.
Then it's the Speaker of the House, so.
Any other questions? Alderman Brennan.
Or Sabatino.
Sabatino?
I'm sorry. Alderman Sabatino.
Emergency.
Check his temperature.
Wow.
Under the sixth whereas, State of Illinois Governor JP should be JB. That's all.
Noted Scrivener's error. Anyone else? Alderman Dunn.
I know that there's some other municipalities that have declared a state of emergency. Do we know if this is very prevalent and if any action has been taken by any other municipality under this new authority?
I'm unaware of any action. I believe Arlington Heights, Champaign. Jim, there was a third one that we found out later today, and then I would ask Don if he has Highland Park. And if was Arlington Heights one? I hope I didn't misstate.
I believe you're correct.
Okay. City Attorney, you work with...
There's more, there's probably more, Alderman Dunn, but those are the ones that I know of that occurred even before today. So that doesn't include today, but I think it's happening.
And their ordinances are structured very similar to this.
This is, yes, this is frankly an IML. And Illinois Municipal League form, template. Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk Tamer, I ask you to call the vote.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Conquest,
Aye.
Brennan,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Deuter,
Aye.
Sabatino,
Aye.
Leader, absent. Dunn,
Aye.
Graham,
Aye.
Palumski,
Aye.
York, absent. Toledo,
Aye.
Park,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, motion carries. Ordinance is adopted or approved. Before we adjourn, I want to thank the council for their confidence. I will continue to seek opinions and advice, not only from city staff, but elected officials. And God willing, we won't have to use this. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Deuter, second by Alderman Kennedy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.